Okay, welcome class. Sorry you can't see me, but I can't seem to get the video to work. But tonight we're going to be talking about layering fiction. And I don't know, good fiction is never what it's really about. You know, a good short story about uh, a garage sale is not really about a garage sale, right? It's about something else, okay? Uh, it's like saying Updike's A and P is a story about a guy who works at a grocery store. That's just not what it's about. So things aren't what here, okay? And what's the story really about? What's the deeper layer? So you want to give your story, a mature writer wants to give their story a deeper layer. Now, did I give you all the examples before about like the dead cat and the divorce story? Did I give you all those about layering examples? Okay,
That's
let
a
me give y'all
different
some
story.
examples, and I don't mean to focus so much on my own life, but that's all I have to pull from, okay? So here's a good example about when you're a writer. Let me back up a minute. When you're a writer, you're always looking for a story. Everything's a story. Stories are everywhere, okay? You're always looking for that story. So here's what happened to me one time. We're huge animal lovers in our family, almost too much, to the point that we treat them like people. And my husband and I had gone to Texas to visit his friends. And my husband hardly ever gets to see his friends, and we were having a great time. But my husband had this cat he was real attached to. Well, my daughter called me and said, Mom, I just want, I'd always told you that if anything ever happened to one of your animals while you were gone, I would let you know, and I wanted to let you know the cat died. Okay. Now, this is not a story about a dead cat. Now I've got to decide whether to tell my husband or not. Do I tell my husband that the cat's died? First, I would build the story up, though, in a way that we never tell each other secrets and we've made this sort of bond. I wouldn't come right out and say it, but I would make it subtle, okay? And, but on the other hand, I would be thinking there's nothing I can do about the dead cat. Why ruin his trip? So now we've moved beyond a story about a dead cat to a story about trust and love and compassion and something completely different than a story about a dead cat. Do you see what I'm saying? Where if the lady just turns around and says our cat died, then we've got a story about a dead cat, and that's not very interesting, is it?
Right.
Yeah,
Makes
that's not very
sense.
interesting.
No.
Most stories that are about what they're about aren't very interesting. Okay, another example I have. I had been writing this story in my head for about 2 or 3 weeks, and it was going to be this story about this girl that was going to get a divorce, and her lawyer just kept telling her, no matter what I say, just say yes, just say yes, no matter what I say, just say yes. So she gets in the elevator with her husband, and they're by themselves, and it's real awkward, and he doesn't want the divorce, and she's got this big party planned at her house where everybody's telling her, you know, free at last party or something, okay? And I would have built it up where she's kind of the person who cares what people think, okay? You know, like when she's setting up the party, I would make it like, oh, I want to make sure everything's just perfect, yada, yada. Okay, so in my mind, she was going to get to that final question, and the lawyer was going to say, so are you sure you divorce? And she was going to say no. Okay. But when I got to the end of that story, her character wasn't building up to that. A good story evolves, and one of the articles talks about that. It talks about a story evolving and how that you can't just rewrite the ending because it builds to that. And it just wasn't her personality to say no. And then I thought, if I make her say no, then all I've got is a story about a woman who thought about getting a divorce, but then decided not to. And I thought, well, that's not very interesting, you know? And so uh, I had her say yes. And it was a much better, because now you've got somebody who's got a divorce and she's just sick about it. Her husband's just sick about it. And it raises the question, why do people do things they don't want to do? Good short stories raise questions. They don't answer them. So it raises that question, wow, why didn't she get that divorce? And you're, as a reader, you're just sick. You wish she would have got the divorce too. Okay? So do you see that as being another example of layering? That's not a short story about somebody getting a divorce. Right?
Right.
Right. Okay. One more example. A couple of semesters ago, I had a young man write a short story about, it was Mother's Day, and his grandmother was dying. And it was clear that this was going to be her last Mother's Day. I don't remember how he made that clear. But he told his wife that he wasn't going to be able to join her at her parents' because he wanted to spend this Mother's Day at his grandmother's. He was going to go to the nursing center where his grandmother was. Well, for a few years, he had been promising his grandmother that he was going to put the Frank Sinatra, a bunch of Frank Sinatra songs on a CD and make a CD for her, okay? And he just never did. And, you know, he's one of these people that kind of always procrastinates. So he waits until really early on Mother's Day. And he's trying to he can't get any of the technology to work. Everything's falling apart, blah, blah, blah. And finally he gets it to work and he takes it up there and says, Happy Mother's Day. Okay, fine. Nice, sweet story. That would have been a much better story had he not gotten the video to work. Because now you've got a dead grandmother, a dying grandmother, and a person who feels guilty as hell that he couldn't get something done on time this one time to please his grandmother. Do you see how that just makes it so much deeper by having him not make the video work?
Right.
Right. The same reason it makes it deeper for the woman to say, yes, I want this divorce, and goes ahead and gets the divorce. Okay? So, as your story builds and develops, it should come to a kind of natural end. It, you know, but be thinking about what's really the story about. What's the story? What's going on under the surface? Hemingway said that in all fiction, the real meaning takes place 8/10 below the surface. You know, so you ask yourself, what's this? And if you'll notice, I would probably say all the stories that I've assigned for you guys aren't what they're about at all. A&P isn't about a guy working at A&P. Okay? The things they carried isn't about the things they carried. Okay?
Right. Because we have to worry about the subtext of everything that we write, you know, and what is the real meaning of what when we're writing, what is the real meaning that we want the audience to catch, you know, to read and so the story is more enjoyable.
Well, more meaningful. I might use the word more meaningful. Yes, yes. I wouldn't say you have to worry about it, but I would, as you're thinking, I'll tell you, part of the secret to it is becoming a good reader. That's why I assigned y'all so many short stories to read. And I was hoping that y'all were reading them from a writerly point of view. How did they do this? How did they make this story about something that it's not really about? Let's see, have we gotten to pharmacy yet? Let me see if we've read that one yet. No, we hadn't read pharmacy yet, but clearly pharmacy is not about a girl who works at a pharmacy, okay? So I guess that I misspoke. The story doesn't really build to a deeper meaning. In your head, when you're thinking about it, it should already have a deeper meaning. You should have something you want to say. A cat dying is just not interesting. Somebody getting a divorce just isn't interesting. Somebody getting a videotape to work and goes and gives it to his grandmother might be nice and sweet and pretty, but it's not interesting. It's not, as Faulkner so beautifully put it in his Nobel speech prize, he said, good fiction's about the human heart in conflict with itself. So give it that extra layer. Ask yourself, what's the real meaning here? What do I really want to say? What's the real message? What's the real point of my story? And that's what we call layering your story, giving it layers. And if you'll notice, whenever you watch a good movie and you ask your friend, perhaps your friend might say, what was the movie about? If it's a really good movie, it's frequently difficult to say what it's about because it's about a lot of things. It's about life and death and everything in between. You know, crappy movies are easy to summarize. You see what I'm saying? But the really deep short stories are a little bit more difficult to summarize. For example, let's see if we've gotten to this one yet. Drinking coffee elsewhere, for example. It's very difficult to say what that story's about because it's just so rich and so deep and about so many things.
That one was probably my favorite so far.
It wasn't that a great story?
It made me sad.
Yeah, yeah. And you read it and you think, damn, how did you do that, right?
That was a good one.
You'll probably like Pharmacy too. So if you want to be a writer, as you're reading, start looking for those layers. Ask yourself, what's this story really about? And it needs to be subtle and happen sort of beneath the surface. The story I gave y'all an example, as an example. Exit Only, do y'all remember that one? I don't know if y'all read it or not, but it was with Short Story Guidelines.
No, I don't think I have read it yet. I'm reading the
Okay, well,
stories
it's
right now.
a story that a student wrote, but it's a very well-written story because it's about many different things, many different things. And a good short story doesn't tell you. You know, I didn't say in my story, now, why didn't she just go ahead and tell the judge she didn't want to get that divorce? Now, why didn't she just go ahead and tell her husband the cat died? They always made promises. You know, you don't tell them. Y'all done, actually, I'm proud of this class. This is the first time I've taught online where I just didn't get stories with so many grammatical and typos and just really bad writing. It was weird because it was much better than my expectations. I don't know what I did differently. I have no idea. I always kind of take a hands-off approach because I figure, I mean, I'm always available. You can email me anytime. Maybe I need to make that more clear to y'all. I just don't believe in having a lot of Zoom meetings because if I've given you, you're looking at 30 years experience. Well, you're not because you can't see me, but I've given you the books and the tools and everything you need to become a good writer. And keep this stuff. If you didn't get a chance to read it all, you might want to go back and read some of it. Another good book y'all can get, it's called Self-Editing for Fiction Writers. It's a really good book that gives you very concrete advice on how to edit.
Professor.
Now, most of the stories that we write for literary, and we talked about this in the last meeting, are character driven. For example, Drinking Coffee Elsewhere, clearly that's character driven. The character's moving the plot forward. The plot is not moving the character forward. All right, what do y'all, I want to hear what y'all have to say about it.
Professor.
Yes.
I mean, I really like the way that the class is structured. because, you know, sometimes there's too much babysitting and they don't give us an opportunity to think for ourselves and to try to figure out. I know that we're gonna make mistakes, and I know for a fact that you are very available because every time I send you an email, you answer right away. But I really like the fact that, you know, that you give us the instructions and then you give us the readings, and then we have to put both of them together and figure out in our minds, you know, if we understood, you know, the documentation that you gave us in regards to the stories. Like, you know, I'm reading them right now, and then I'm, you know, I read the story and then it clicks, you know.
Yes.
Instead of getting all these instructions and then you're trying to figure out what goes with what, you know, and you sometimes you get so confused. And the majority of my screenplay writing classes were like this, you know, and I agree 100% with you that reading makes you a really good writer, because I have read a lot, and, you know, and in as much as, I mean, the number 5 was my first fictional short story. And I'm going, of course, you know, I'm going through my canvas, you know, like you're going to canvas, I'm going through my canvas, like everything is in my head saying, wait a second, it's supposed to be like this, because, you know, we read scripts in place like this, you know, and I'm trying to get all that information out of my head that will be blackboard, and I'm trying to go into the zone of a story is different. You know, you don't
Well,
have.
but you know what? The screenwriting class, Judith, will serve you well because
Yeah.
you know it's real formula oriented. But by God, you don't come out of a screenwriting class not understanding plot.
Oh, no. I had Professor Wojtyla. Let me tell you, he is a genius. And
Good.
and he gave us, and you know, the one thing, you know, that I'm trying to change my mindset is in regards, see, when we write screenplays, we only write verbs that can be shot, that can be filmed.
Yes.
So, you know, it's like writing the word I feel, you know, I have to overcome that. Wait a second, this cannot be filmed. You know, wait a
Yeah.
second, I'm telling a story.
Yeah. Well, you can get inside the character's head now. You know, that's why, like, for example, there's never really been a good adaptation of Huck Finn. Because what are you going to do? Put a big bubble over his head? Okay, then I'll go to hell. You know. But that's probably what you're struggling with. You can use point of view now, and you can get inside of their head.
Yes.
Yes.
And my second story is gonna be from you know, first person point of view. And I had a question about that, Professor. Okay, so my story starts in the present and then it goes into a flashback the last a little while. Okay, when I go into the flashback, the first sentences I write in past tense, and then I change to prose to present tense.
No. Stay in that past tense.
Okay, got it.
But I guess you know there's 3 rules in screenwriting: no backstory, no backstory, no backstory.
Exactly.
I guess I would question how come so much of it is in backstory.
Because he is in Japan. He went to Japan on a dare, and then I have to explain you know, what the dare was, and you know, and he also talks at the beginning that he just killed his girlfriend because she tried to kill him, and then he said, wait a second, let me start from the beginning, and then he tells the whole story as to how everything happened, and then, you know, almost to the end we go back to the present, because a lot of things happen. It's a horror short story.
Okay, listen, before you do this, I want you to go back and reread the story. I think, let me look here. I've got it written down. Brock, avoid info dump.
Okay.
Make sure that you're not just doing it as a way of info dumping.
Okay, got it.
Okay?
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Because you don't want too much backstory in a short story.
Okay.
Try to remember that, okay?
Okay.
But, you know, rules are made to be broken all the time. So, you know, and I'm not here to slap your hand and tell you not to do that. I'm just here to help you become the best writer you can be.
Yes, Professor, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. And that's why I don't babysit you. The discussion questions really force you to think about the stories, I think, more than almost anything.
Yes, yes.
You have to interpret them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is amazing, Professor, because you know, like you said, we are a group. We're hardcore because we're taking a class in the summer. Okay, so
Yeah. Yeah.
but
This is
yeah, but I have read some of the stories, and I have read, you know, like you know, the critique on the stories that, you know, such as say AMP and all the other ones, and oh my gosh, they're so well thought, you know, and they really go into, you know, things that are not obvious but do make, you know, they're very, very insightful as to what the characters are thinking, and the reasons why they behave the way that they do. And yeah, no,
yeah.
I love this class, and I love my classmates. They're really, really smart.
I love to read the story. The stories that I put online were well thought out, you know, that there was a reason I had you read them. So if you're in a literature class and the teacher asks you what the story was about, just say things aren't what they appear, and you'll almost always get it right. Any other comments? Anybody else want to speak about how they've learned to layer a story or examples of a story that's well layered? No questions, comments, or testimonies? Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording. Give me a minute. I'm going to stop the recording.